one of the responses I did was to stay with our USAR team, which is Urban Search and Rescue team, while they were doing the work that they needed to do after Helene. Swannanoa is a little suburb of Asheville, and it was decimated after Helene. And I remember talking to people that live there and them having to drive past my school, and the school's no longer there. Our church is gone. One thing that you do need to know is how to not get in the way. And I'm really good at that because I'm not doing any of the things that people are doing. Even if they didn't talk about things in that moment, having me there is comforting and makes a huge difference for them. They can look over and see somebody that they know and trust.
Welcome to Responder Resilience, along with my co-host, Dr. Stacy Raymond. I'm David Dashinger. Today, we're going to dig into the critical world of disaster response with Joellen Rhyndress, a seasoned therapist and the founder of Backbone Behavioral Health. Join us as she shares her insights on being an embedded clinician during disaster deployments and mass casualty events. And we're going to explore how cultural competence can make or break trust, the power of resilience and healing, and tackling misconceptions surrounding responder mental health.
Thanks to our resource partner, First Responder Project, whose no-cost first responder retreats offer you a chance to reclaim connection and learn vital skills. This isn't just a retreat, it's a lifeline to keep you mentally strong at work and emotionally present at home. Take a stand for your well-being and the connections that matter most. Sign up now for your FRP retreat. Learn more and register at firstresponderproject.org.
There's a new app built by firefighters for firefighters, and it's called Crackle. Download the app now for free as a Legacy member and get early access to exclusive content, tools, and updates as they drop. Get the free app at crackle.respondertv.com.
Thanks also to our resource partner, Fight Camp. For free shipping and a free month of membership, go to joinfightcamp.com/shop and use the code RRPONE.
Remember to like and subscribe: YouTube, Responder Resilience; Facebook, Responder TV; LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and go to our website, respondertv.com, for past episodes and guest information. We'll be right back to speak with Joellen after this.
In this family, more of us die by our own hands than by the hazards of the job.
In this family, up to a quarter of 911 telecommunicators have symptoms of post-traumatic stress.
In this family, our mental health and wellness are in crisis,
while responders are quietly suffering.
In this family, many struggle with job-related stress,
burnout, moral injury,
sleep disruptions, substance abuse,
and relationship problems.
In this family, we can help the helpers.
With vital information and resources,
resilient strategies,
and success stories of overcoming the obstacles.
In this family, no one is alone.
Welcome to Responder Resilience with co-hosts retired Lieutenant David Dashinger, Dr. Stacy Raymond, and Bonnie Rumley, LCSW EMTB.
We'd like to welcome Joellen Rhyndress. She's a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Backbone Behavioral Health. With over 20 years of experience in crisis response and behavioral health, she has a strong background in supporting first responders, veterans, and communities dealing with natural disasters and mass casualties. Joellen earned her master's in social work from Grand Valley State University and has personal insight into the challenges like officer-involved shootings and first responder suicide, having grown up in a law enforcement family. She serves as a clinical advisor for the National Park Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and provides care to wildland firefighters, rangers, veterans, EMS, and police across the country. Joellen, welcome to Responder Resilience.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
So, Joellen, I'd like to start by asking you, since you come from a law enforcement family, yes, how did that shape your career path?
Interestingly enough, my husband and I were talking about this a little bit last night about how I never knew what a social worker was growing up. I had never in my family had anyone go talk to anybody in mental health, or did we ever discuss that, which was interesting now that that's my chosen profession. And we were talking about how the first, I think I was 23, the first time I met a social worker. So I didn't know anything about mental health growing up at all. However, I did know a lot about trauma. being a family member from people that experience trauma through their work, people that are, and being a community member as well that had an interest in trauma from when I was young. So that helped shaped my career path. I think the career path that where I'm at now definitely was shaped by my family. I'm able to understand or speak the language, I guess, of first responder culture. And that goes really far with building trust with people, building some sort of rapport. So it was rather natural. I also, because I come from a first responder family, I have a lot of dark humor. And actually the other day I was in a meeting we were in a meeting talking about Helene, our plan for the response to the anniversary of Helene. And we were planning on doing a staff ride, and we're going to go to these stops where bodies were recovered. Right. And I made a very off color comment that just sort of popped out. And I went like, ugh. Because I was like, where am I? And then I was like, oh, it's okay. That humor isn't always acceptable other places, like, with the third grade teacher or something like that. But so it's been helpful to me to be able to be myself as a therapist, which I think makes me a better therapist, and actually any kind of a good therapist, to be able to be yourself. And so that me growing up in the culture allows me to be able to do that at work. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
It kind of changes the energy around speaking to people like law enforcement. I think some people get, a little nervous or, rightly so. You probably have apprehension about talking to them, where once you have that comfort level, it changes the vibe of the conversation and the whole, as you said, stuff like dark humor can pop out without it being an issue.
But even sharing that you come from a law enforcement family, and I share that as well. My father was a police officer. So that almost kind of, it helps with a shoe in, with the trust. So,
So let's circle back to Hurricane Helene in a couple of minutes. Before we do that, I kind of stumbled across your LinkedIn bio, and I saw the work that you have done and are doing. And especially the part about being embedded clinician in natural disasters and MCIs. And I thought, this is amazing. I've never heard of anyone who does this. So talk a little bit about how you got into that and why, what it requires. It's a little different than sitting in an office and seeing first responders.
It's a lot different. And how I initially got into it was with the first place that I worked, which is actually in Michigan at the Community Mental Health Center. I was an ACT team leader. And then I transitioned to the community that I come from is Muskegon County. And it's a pretty violent place. We have a lot of street level violence. It's on a lake. So there's a lot of traumatic and tragic accidents that happen around water. So our director decided to have a position she named it psychological first aid specialist. So I took that position and started that role at our agency and had volunteers that would go with me to traumatic events, and I would plan the responses to our local ones. So then my agency, Hurricane Harvey happened, and the Red Cross was very low on clinicians to respond to that hurricane. And I don't remember why. So I was like, hey, I'll go. And my agency was like, you will? And I'm like, sure, why not? And like, so that was my first response was with the Red Cross. And my agency paid me to go. I still got paid, but I went to Hurricane Harvey, worked as a Red Cross volunteer, providing support to all people that were responding or all people that had experienced Harvey. So that was my first big, large national scale disaster. And I continued to do that with the Red Cross. I actually got to lead the response to a mass casualty event, which was the Dayton mass shooting. And that was surprisingly, I mean, the way I'm going to talk about it, it was like the coolest thing ever for me, but I know that it wasn't cool for most people. So I want to say that, but being able to have that experience was very much, I learned a ton, and it also gave me some confidence to continue to do that kind of work, which I did. And then when I moved to North Carolina, I became an embedded clinician through the company I worked for in police and fire departments. And then we would also do the federal deployments, which is where and then I got to know some of the people pretty well. And they were like, I think Joellen could come out here and go to this fire camp. And so I did. I mean, like, really part of it is I just don't know any better. Maybe. I drive during the day because I'm not a good driver. But other than that, like, I don't have a lot of fear around those types of things. So that's how I got into doing that. I enjoy that kind of work tremendously. I like the planning involved in disaster work. I think it brings a different kind of clinician to the table. And I feel very comfortable around those kinds of clinicians. And so it's like very much a good peer community for me.
Sure.
Which helps a lot because sometimes I don't feel as comfortable with other clinicians, at conferences or whatever, other things. We don't look at things. We don't come from things the same way. We don't look at things the same way. So it's been a huge benefit to me that way as well, working with other clinicians that serve the same population or do the same kind of work that I do.
All units, stand by for a confirmed structure fire with reported persons trapped.
In a world where first responders save lives, this book could help save theirs by preparing you to answer when they call for help. Based on over 200 conversations and the trusted team behind the Responder Resilience podcast, Helping the Helpers gives you the tools to understand their world, speak their language, and earn their trust. This work is challenging, but deeply needed and profoundly rewarding. Their stories don't start with trauma, but too often they end there. Infused with real-life experiences, this guide reveals the human behind the badge and equips you to build a first responder-centered practice that works. From understanding their culture to the practical realities of working with first responders and chapters across the spectrum of first responder professions, you'll gain insight into the hidden struggles that shape their reality and the steps you can take to help them heal. When trust is shattered, the stakes are high. This book helps you build it before it's too late. Are you ready to make a difference? Be the resource they can count on. Order your copy of Helping the Helpers, the Clinicians Guide to First Responder Mental Wellness, today.
The disaster stuff, I'm hoping at some point that there can be an ICS lane for mental health that's built right into disaster planning. We're working on that a little bit with North Carolina. We talked about Helene. One of the responses I did was to stay with our USAR team, which is Urban Search and Rescue team, while they were doing the work that they needed to do after Helene. And that doesn't, one thing that you do need to know is like how to not get in the way. And I'm really good at that because I'm not doing any of the things that people are doing. I'm like, I'm not going on the boat with you and getting tipped over, because then you'll worry about where's the therapist, and and we don't need you to be worried about me. So I'm usually at some staging place, right? Like in the fire camp, I had my own little trailer in the fire camp, and I will go out to a fire, but I'm not firefighting.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That would not be helpful to anyone to have me try to do that. So that's the one thing that I think is really important to know is like knowing how to stay out of the way, where to be. Don't crowd up on people when they're trying to do something. Right. Pay attention to your own safety. Like they would walk places that were hugely debris filled areas. Like the debris was really, I don't know if you've seen any of the
some of the images is horrible.
Yes. I tried to stay on level ground, so no one's having to. I did get stuck in the mud once, and 2 firefighters had to put me out.
You don't want to become a casualty yourself.
No, I did save the energy drinks though. That's my. I was like, I'm sinking. You guys gotta come get me. My boots got stuck.
Are you wearing civilian clothes, or like what kind of gear do you wear when you're out at a fire camp or during this Helene response?
So I wear usually civilian clothes, and here's why. I am not a first responder, and I like to be able to have that separateness. I also don't call people by their last name. I call them by their first name, like I would a family member, friend, or any other acquaintance that I have, because we're not peers in the same way. Like my role is different. I don't use the last name. I don't call people by their rank. I use just first names, and the keeping my own clothes is just a thing for me to, except for boots. There's certain boots that I have to wear.
Sure.
It's just a way for me to let people know that I am not trying to be one of you. I'm here in this particular role for you. And yeah, that's what I did. So I would go with whoever, if they found a body in a particular location. Firefighters are really good, and so are the police, are really good about telling me, hey, can you go check on this person? So I would do a lot of like just checking on people. It's not like when they're trying to recover a body that I'm going to be up in their face going, how are you feeling? That's not going to be an appropriate thing. What they will tell you, if you ever get a chance to talk to anybody, is that even if they didn't talk about things in that moment, having me there is comforting and just and makes a huge difference for them. They can look over and see somebody that they know and trust.
Right.
And that was other teams that were from other places would bring people over and to chat occasionally too, if they were particularly stressed about something. The interesting thing about first responders that I think is missed a lot is most of the issues that they have nothing to do with their job. It's a lot of personal stuff. So, and personal stuff can come up at a disaster too.
Sure. So, because you're saying you're not going to respond as a first responder, and that's completely understandable. When you arrive at the scene of a wildland fire, a disaster, critical incident, what are some of the first things that you're thinking of and that you're going to do to help?
Listen. I do a lot of listening and people and asking some questions. Every situation is different. The dynamics are different. You can't go to a specific scene and expect that you know what to expect, because you do not. It'll be something completely different, and the people that are there are different, right? Like sometimes it's typical of, let's say, a fire department. One of the last people I checked on before I left Asheville there was a murder, right? And they had worked this murder. And the reason why I was checking on them was because it was the first murder they ever worked. Right. So that a rookie could respond differently than a senior firefighter is going to at a particular scene.
Right.
So it's like that. So anytime that I go someplace, the first thing that I do is just try to learn about what's them and what's going on with them.
Right.
And what happened. That's the most important piece.
Boxing has the power to change lives, especially for first responders. Fight Camp embraces your journey, whether you're stepping into the ring for the first time, returning after a break, or aiming to elevate your fitness. Harness the strength of boxing to release stress, build resilience, and connect with a supportive community, one punch at a time. For free shipping and a free month of membership, go to joinfightcamp.com/shop and use the code RRP1. That's RRPONE.
So take us to, one of these scenes that you've maybe perhaps a wildland fire. You said you had a trailer. What does it look like when someone does need help? Like, what modalities are you using or might you use? And do you give them tools, resources there on the spot that help them through the rough patch that they're experiencing?
Yeah, it depends on what they bring to the table, right? If they bring something about the critical incident, then Then I do a lot of psychological first aid, which isn't therapy, right? Yeah. So I'm not diagnosing you. We're just talking about what's going on with you in the moment. I know a little bit about stress. Here's some things I know that can be helpful if you're experiencing a high level of stress. I also, your mind gets caught in the loop of trying to figure out something that you cannot make sense out of, right? Like a disaster or something. I mean, I walked around with the USAR team going, just can't believe this. Just can't believe this is like this. Like, this is so unbelievable, right? So your mind is on this loop. So you don't really remember the ways that you stay resilient or help with what helps you with your resiliency or health in those moments. So I help people remind them of those things because their mind is stuck on a loop. I like a lot of psychoeducation. I wish I would have known a thing or two about that it shouldn't be a clinician secret. About breathing and sleep and all those, cool things that, we really don't get taught. We should, but we don't. So that's the kind of thing that I rely on. And then, of course, like figuring out what other resources they may need moving forward, if any.
So what do clinicians need to know if they're if they're trying to support someone during a critical incident and it's an ongoing, it's a long lasting, so kind of like the Hurricane Helene situation in Asheville. So what do you think clinicians need to know in order to properly support first responders?
Well, the interesting thing about the fire camp was that I didn't, it was a new kind of thing to do. And I didn't get like a lot of people coming to talk to me about their problems. And one of the things that we figure is, well, they're still in work mode, right? Yeah. So they're in work mode. So they're not focusing on that. They have put that into the little box or the cage or the cave or whatever they want to call it, where they keep that stuff, right? Yeah. And that's where it needs to be. So I think understanding that even if you are there to be a support, it's not going to be a deep dive into people, what they've experienced, unless by chance that they want to come in and share about that, right? Because they can't get it off their mind or whatever else. So to me, that's one of the most important things. It's like I said, the role a lot of the time during Helene was as support. Like I can look over there and there's somebody I know, if this gets bad, will be there for me, right? So that I think is an important piece. You often see it with clinicians that start to do Red Cross stuff, and they're like trying to like dive really deep with people, and that's not what you're there for. That doesn't matter whether they're bipolar, really, unless they need help getting their meds. Like that might be a thing. However, what do they need to get through the next couple days? What do they need from you right now? So I think it's just being kind of aware that just because you feel really comfortable with all this clinical stuff that you know and want to do and practice, that it's not the time or the place.
That's a good point.
See, throughout incident command system before, I'm just going to popcorn a couple of things and see what we can talk about with this.
Okay.
But in this scenario, like you're describing, being embedded, being deployed in the field on a ongoing disaster, are there elements of peer support or critical incident stress management that come into play? And maybe incident command. I've heard of a peer support command post on a big MCI. Any of those things practical in these scenarios?
Definitely, peer support is always practical. I'm a huge proponent of peer support. Even the way I do, like I see my clients has a big peer element to it. A lot of times with my law enforcement clients, I know who your emergency contact is, but I want a release and I want to know, who do I call if I don't hear from you and I'm worried about you? Because that's not necessarily the same person, right?
Right.
And so it's like, I'm going to use your peer before I'm going to call your boss or your wife or somebody else that you might not want to know what's going on. I'm going to use this peer person because I don't want to call like in my family, you don't call the law on the law. It's probably an old fashioned thing to say, but that peer can be way more beneficial in the relationship and your healing than just having a therapist, in my view.
Okay.
So peer support is very helpful that way. CISM is helpful for all kinds of reasons, right? That we've studied and we know. The group element to me just brings a lot of normalization and heals people like in seconds. It's like amazing. It's like, whoa, we just, okay. All we had to do was agree that we all felt like this was shitty. And
it normalizes it for everybody, and they don't feel like the oddball who's completely stressed out.
Yeah. Like, why is this bothering me and nobody else? Oh, it is. They just are better at hiding it. So peer support in those elements, I think, are really important. I think that peers also have a role, and I usually challenge my clients this way. Like, well, if you're so big and tough, why don't you go talk about your treatment? Or that you had treatment. Because if you don't, you're not that big and tough. So peers that have had experience with a clinician, whatever that may look like, or their family member has, I think it's important for them to share. And when they share, it is heard completely different than from anybody else. The interesting thing about the place that I worked in North Carolina for 5 years was that after about 6 months, I didn't get any referrals from our office at all. And I was full constantly, like never not full. It was all word of mouth, because that's who's going to show up. And that's the real test, right?
Right.
So peers save lives.
As firefighters and first responders, we're brilliant at the basics. We master the art of stretching the line, and we excel at being there for those who need us most. Yet even the best of us can be caught off guard. We sometimes face unexpected challenges like injury, cancer, or post-traumatic stress symptoms. But you're not alone. The First Responder Center for Excellence is here to equip you with the tools and resources you need to stay informed and prepared. We help you focus on staying strong, safe, fit, and resilient. Optimize your performance with cutting-edge health, wellness, and science information. From fitness to nutrition, medical evaluations to behavioral health, cancer awareness to cardiac health. We've got you covered. Remember, we're stronger together. Discover more at firstrespondercenter.org and connect with us on X, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. The First Responder Center for Excellence. Equip yourself with excellence for every call.
So what are some of the biggest misconceptions, Joellen, that you've seen about critical incident response and responder mental health?
Well, the one that's my pet peeve would be, it has a lot to do with clinicians. Right after Helene, we had, I think, 13, if I remember correctly, what it was told to me, show up at our county dispatch together. There's no toilets. There's no water. There's no food.
So they just self-dispatch to help out.
To help out, to become a problem, right? Yeah. And there was a lot, like at one point, I was in the EOC for the city of Asheville, and they were like, oh, we want to bring over this other clinic. And I was like, I don't know who that is, and no one's stepping foot in this room unless I know them and vet them. So I think that there's that misconception that just because you're a clinician, you can just walk right in here and people are going to talk to you, or that it's appropriate time for you to be there, or, everyone wants to sit down and do a CISM. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're still in the work mode, right? Maybe it's not scheduled at an appropriate time. Maybe it needs to be maybe you need a diffusing at 1 a.m. So the clinical professions misconception, I think, about how to respond has gotten in the way of us having a better professional relationship with the culture, with the other profession, right? So that's the huge one for me that I wish that would get better.
Talking about the deployment, if someone was interested in doing this kind of work as a clinician, what else would they need to know? Especially because these are probably extended deployments. Obviously, you're going to have to adapt and pivot in a lot of situations. Can you give us some insight into that? Maybe some examples of how you've had to deal with, unforeseen circumstances that you had to cope with or come up with a plan B?
Yeah. So you can't expect your creature comforts, right? Like that would be the first thing that people really don't know. I went, apparently, I didn't know it at the time, because apparently I just don't ask a lot of questions, but I went to Saipan, which I didn't even know was a part of the U.S. Apparently geography isn't taught well in Michigan. I'm just going to blame it on that. And they had a typhoon. They call it a typhoon in the Pacific. They had a Category 5 typhoon. Mm-hmm. And basically, when you show up to something like that, there's no bathroom. So you have to be comfortable digging a hole. You have to be comfortable using a life straw to clean your water, perhaps, right? Mm-hmm. So there's different levels and different things that you may need to be prepared for. So like I have a little air machine that makes the air noise, the fan noise, to drown out people. So if I'm at a place and we don't know if we have complete privacy, it's a little teeny one that battery charges. I can charge it on my computer that I bring with me to make sure that people feel like they have some privacy, right? That helps with that. So I think that being a flexible person, being a person that enjoys those kinds of challenges like I do, like, I'm living in an Airstream right now. and creek water is, my friend in the shower, is what we wash with. And this is, I'm comfortable without the creature comforts. So that's an important piece. Knowing where, if you're going someplace, what the weather is going to be like is important. So you're dressed appropriately. You have the right kind of shoes. That's a big thing. Lots of dry socks. So it's a lot about the preparation and maybe even kind of knowing what you're doing ahead of time, if you can ask a lot of questions about the area that you're going. But that's not always possible. So sometimes it's like I find out like the day before, hey, can you go here? And then it's just about making do. My hair is probably going to stay long for a very long time because ponytails make life a lot easier when you can't do your hair, and you can look better, a little bit more professional with a ponytail, right? So it's kind of being able to pivot and enjoying that challenge. I think you have to enjoy it.
Yeah, embrace it.
Yes, that's a better word. Embrace it. I don't know if enjoy it all the time is the word I want to use.
Yeah, accept it and live with the land. Live with nature.
Yes, the fire camp was the fire camp was great. It was fine. However, the road to get there was treacherous. I was like, I'm so glad I didn't drive. I drove it at night. Didn't drive this during the day because I would have seen what I was where. I was like, oh my God. So for me, that's always the thing is like, what's this road going to be like? But you can get on YouTube and watch videos, which is a cool thing about roads.
You mean from what just happened?
Yeah.
You can go on YouTube and see if it's passable or how to.
No, I mean just like what the road is drivable, like how drivable is it? When you get up here and when you get up to Michigan in the winter, there's certain roads that you're going to feel comfortable driving on, and probably ones that you're not if it's snowy or icy. And the same thing in the mountains in North Carolina. Definitely out west. That was a fire camp that was out west in California, and I think it was the I can't remember, the boreal fire, and just the where it was, this really curvy, cliffy road was. You can get on YouTube and you can look to see what those roads are like driving. And I'm like, well, it doesn't look like there's much traffic, so I'll be okay because I'm just going to go slow. Just get off the road if somebody gets on with me.
So, what practical tools or approaches do you help first responders learn who have been in these critical incidents so that they're better prepared, for the next one that might happen?
I'll use Helene because there's a lot to learn with spending a year with the fire department and police department, when knowing them so well before too. Some of the things that often we don't understand that's going to occur is that the responses are going to be much way after the event. that we need to, it trickles out later after you feel comfortable, after all the stress is gone. I would say the number one symptom first responders have is to feel somehow guilty or responsible for an event. That's a helper thing, a symptom that helpers have.
Yeah.
So we do too as clinicians. So I think understanding that, like, that's a normal way to feel, and normalizing, that's an important piece to knowing that you're okay, right? You're okay. I think that understanding the difference with disasters and critical incidents is nobody ever is prepared, right? That's why they're a critical incident, because if they would have been prepared, it probably wouldn't have happened. They would have fixed it before it happened, right? So this thing happens, and I think that fire actually started by somebody drove off the cliff, was in an accident, and it was a car fire, and then then the whole park or whatever it was is on fire, and then houses burnt, I think, in that one too. I know that happened. If you're with responders that are from the area, they're going to have to live and see this, and they knew what it was like before, and they now know the place that they went. What was when Swannanoa is a little suburb of Asheville, and it was decimated after Helene. And I remember talking to people that live there, and them just having to drive past my school, and the school's no longer there. Our church is gone. Those types of things people don't, we don't think about if the disaster isn't happening where we're from. As a clinician, if you live where the disaster happened, you're going to be different. You are going to be affected by the incident as well, right?
Yeah.
So having different limits around how your self-care and what that, how much you can give is something to pay attention to, because we don't need people to burn out because of the need is high at the time. We need them to take care. We need clinicians to take care of themselves as well around these particular kinds of events that happen in their hometowns or where they're from. So I think it's different when you're traveling to one. That's not where I went to school. I don't know any different than the way the place looks now, right? So it's not, the effect isn't going to be nearly as the same as it would be if that's my community.
Yeah, thanks for touching on the self-care piece, because I think that's something that clinicians need to consider, especially the dynamics of being in a disaster where you are, it's your home and it's your roots versus place that you're just, visiting, so to speak, because could be been sent there or deployed there. We've covered a lot, but anything else we didn't cover that you'd like to share? And it doesn't have to just be about disaster response, but anything else that you would like clinicians to know about working with the first responder population, or things that you think are valuable to be aware of?
I think the one thing that I'd like to touch on is that if there is a disaster or critical incident, most likely there's going to be a loss of life of a first responder. And that changes things tremendously. Right? And unfortunately that happened in Helene. The first question that I asked was, is everybody accounted for? Do we know have we talked to everybody? Do we know where everybody's at? Or do we know if what I was asking is, do we know do we know who's alive, right? Or who isn't? Because you hear a bunch of stuff in the beginning of a disaster about things, but you can't count on any of that stuff that you hear, because it's just talk. So I think that that's an important piece to remember, that there's probably at least an injury, if not a death. And there is definitely ways to approach that are a little different than other kinds of work that you might do. Like giving people all of the control is to me number one. If a decision needs to be made about somebody's safety, mental health safety, I'm going to make that decision. I'll just do it. I don't have any problem doing that. But anything else that needs to happen around events need to be filtered through the people that it happened to. They need to have the control, because that's how that's how we help them heal, right? So that's an important piece, I think. Like, don't, you might want to come in and like Joellen might come in, oh, I've been to a fire before, I know what to do. That's not what's needed at this particular time, especially if there's been an injury or a death.
Well, great. Thank you. That's amazing insight. Stacy, any final thoughts?
So I just think, Joellen, you bring a facet to, helping first responders that I don't think we've ever really heard about on our podcast before. So, very eye-opening, very helpful, for all of us to be aware of. So thank you very much for bringing that to us today.
Well, thank you for doing this podcast, because you save lives, right?
Well,
Hope so.
Our mission is, if we, can touch one person and help them, we've succeeded. And, we just launched a book in September where we tried to do a deep dive for clinician awareness, but also for peer support, EAP, chaplains, agency leadership, families, to help them understand first responder world and some of the niches that exist in our professions. And we knew we couldn't get everything in the book. And now that we've covered this with you, we look at the podcast as like the living expansion of the book. So hopefully there's people out there, clinicians and others, who want to step up into this role, because it seems like it's very much needed for first responders who are in these highly unusual and dramatic responses. So thanks for all you do and continue to do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Remember, like and subscribe: YouTube, Responder Resilience; Facebook, Responder TV; LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go to our website, respondertv.com, for past episodes, guest information. Until the next time, stay safe, be kind to yourself, take care.